So now we have the right letters. So, first thing, as always, when finding the equation of a line, you start with your formula, right? Y equals mx plus c. Very straightforward. So, let's say this is our line. So clearly, we cannot see the m value, or sorry, the c value here. It's somewhere in between -1 and -2, but I cannot see exactly where it's at. So that tells me right now that I'm going to have to use algebra to solve it. Okay? But what I can find is I can find my slope. Right? I have 2 points here that I can use, and I can use those to find my slope. Okay? So again, as usual, slope is the up and down change, left and right change, right? Rise over run, change in y over change in x, however you want to say it. So we just count. We start at this point, I count to my right 2 steps, I count up 3 steps, so the y change is 3, x changes 2, so my slope is 3 over 2. Right? That we've done many times already, so hopefully... What do you mean? Oh, like up here and over? Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter whether you do it this way or if you do it that way. Still the same thing. Okay? That's really up to you. So, I have my slope, so I put it into my equation. So I change m to 3 over 2. So far I have y equals 3 over 2x plus c. So what I need to find now is I need to find my intercept. Okay? I need to find this c value. So this is a little bit harder, so we have to use algebra this time. So just like with any algebraic equation, right, you cannot solve for a letter unless it's the only letter in the equation, right? If I have, 2a equals 3b plus 4, I can't solve for a and b without, knowing something about one letter or the other, right? I either need to know a or I need to know b, something like that. Same goes for this. I cannot solve for c unless I somehow get rid of or change x and y. Because I can only solve for the variable if it's the only variable in my equation. So that's what we're going to do. We have 3 letters which we can't solve, so we need to turn it into an equation with 1 letter. So, easiest way to do it is pick a point that we know. We can pick any point that we want, but for this one, for example, I'm going to pick 1, 0. Just because it's small numbers, usually when you have 0 in there, it's easier to work with, easier to solve, right? So that's the point I'm going to pick. So x is equal to 1 here, and y is equal to 0. So I'm going to take those x and y values and put them into my equation. So at that particular point, again, x is 1, y is 0, so I change y to 0 and x to 1. So that is now my new equation. So 0 is equal to 3 over 2 times 1 plus c. So I've gotten rid of x and y. Now the only letter I have left is c, so I can solve that using normal algebra. We're good so far? So, just solve that. 3 over 2 times 1 is 3 over 2. Then to get c by itself, I have to bring 3 over 2, but I see that this is kind of hard to do. That's supposed to be a negative 3 over 2, because I bring 3 over 2 to the other side of my equation, so it becomes the opposite, so it should be negative. So c is equal to negative 3 over 2. Now I just put that back into my original equation here. So my final answer, y is equal to 3 over 2x minus 3 over 2. And we're done. So obviously, there are a few more steps than the basic ones, but in itself, it's really not that much harder. As long as you're good with algebra, you just pick a point, change x and y, and solve for c. So it's just a couple extra steps, but it's not too much more. Are there any questions about this one?
Can we do more examples?
Of course we can. In fact, we can do 2 more examples. Okay? So if that's your only question, we'll start here. Those points are... Okay, so we'll take a look at this one. It seems like the majority of you are just about finished or are finished. So the first thing we need to do is find our slope. So given the graph, we can clearly just count to our next point, but I'm going to use the formula I showed you a couple classes ago. If you remember the change in y over change in x, so it would be 3 minus 1 over 4 minus 1, which is 2 over 3. I just want to remind you about that formula, that's all. You're more than welcome to just start here, count up 1, 2 steps, and then over 3 steps. That's 2, and that's 3. Okay. So we have our slope. Y equals 2/3 x plus c. Okay. Now what do I need to do next? Substitute some numbers. What numbers am I going to substitute? 1 and 1. 1 and 1. Now, just to show you, because I think most of you picked 1 and 1 for this, just to show you that any point will work, I'm going to pick 4 and 3, just to be different. So, y is 3. This is 2/3 times 4 plus c. Okay, so I'll continue up over here. I get 3 equals 8 over 3 plus c. Now I need to subtract that. So I'm going to change 3 to 9 over 3 minus 8 over 3, which is equal to c. So c is equal to 1/3, which is the same thing everyone else got using 1 and 1. So just to show you any point will work, you will still get the same answer. And then finally, y is equal to 2/3 x plus 1/3. That is our final answer. Fractions. Yes, it is. But when it's a whole number, it's easy to change the denominator to be the same. You just multiply by whatever that is, and then, so 3 times 3.
I need more practice.
With fractions or with this?
No, with this.
Well, that's perfect, because there's one more example. Yay! So these points are not labeled this time. -1, -2. So this is -1, -2, and this point is 2 minus 3. Okay, so we'll start with our slope. We'll do the easy one. We'll just count. Down 1, over 3. So minus 1/3. So our slope is -1 over 3. Okay, easy part. So y equals -1/3 x plus c. So now I pick a point. And for Carlos, I will pick this point. So y is -3, and -1/3, x is 2, plus c. So I need to solve for c. So -1/3 times 2 is -2/3. It's -3. I'm going to change -3 to -9 over 3. And then when I bring this to the other side of my equation, it becomes positive, so plus 2/3 equals c. So minus 9 over 3 plus 2 over 3 is -7 over 3.
Can you do the -1?
Sure.
Don't erase the point that you did.
So there's our answer. That's what we're looking for. So you want this one? Even easier. Lucky. So,
What?
This times this is 1/3. I will change -2 to be -6/3. So -6/3 minus 1/3 equals C. So I'll write over here. C is equal to -7/3.
It's easy.
Like, how did you get the -6/3?
Because
I multiplied this by 3 to get -6 and change my denominator.
that's what I did wrong.
How did
I
you
did
get?
it
Yeah,
like
that's
I thought it was 5/3.
No, the thing I got wrong is I did -2
And
minus -1.
How did you get that? Like
-2 minus 1/3? Well, that's what I did here.
That's
I
like,
just changed it to a fraction.
-2 minus -1/3.
Oh, yeah, you have to, this makes it positive, and then you have to change signs, which is minus 1/3. So you just have to be really careful with your negative signs. So knowing that we all need so much practice, I can pretty much guarantee on the quiz or test there'll be a lot of negative signs.
No.
Yeah, because you need to practice. So that's the way it's going to be.